wanted. So ice breaking, when the borders open, where would you like to visit? So in there you can key in like 2 response and you can key in multiple of them actually. So these two are just my testing one. So let's know where would you want to visit when the borders open. Hey. Oh really? Bukit Gasing? That's very interesting. Anywhere free. Thailand, the gym room. Wow, we have some sporty people here actually. Jeju, Tokyo. Oh my god, I also want to go to Tokyo. Langkawi might be crowded lah. Oh, we have quite a lot of people that actually do sports. Maybe we can do one. Okay. Nice. Anything else? Terengganu. Restaurant you can go now already. I finished those. Really, I think for the people who have completed all those, you can actually dine now. Overseas UK. Oh, I wanted to go back to UK too. Nice. Okay, let's continue. Okay, now is the quiz session. Oopsie. Hey, how do I do that? Do I have to restart everything? Hold on. Okay, I have some issue with my mental. Oh, I have to reset the result. Oh my God. Sorry guys. Let me just reset the result for all slides. I didn't know that. Okay, let's try again. Okay, we have done this. Okay, now we are waiting for players, right? Join guys. Okay, actually it's my first time using this, so bear with me if I have some technical issue. How many do we have?
Brianna, do you want to share your screen?
Oh, I haven't shared. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, can see the screen.
Nice. Okay. Right. So
honestly, I like the icon so much.
Yeah, me too. Okay, let's start. The first questions. Which of the below is not the recommended way of creating date table? Use the source data, use the DAX function, use Power Query to define one, use create data in Power BI Online. 6 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Let's see. Yep, I think most of us, not most of us got it right. So use create data in Power BI Online. It's not the recommended way to do it. Though you can do it, but it's not the recommended one. The rest of the 3 is the recommended one that you can find it in one of the slide there. The one that they recommended the most is actually using the source data, meaning using existing data that you have. If you don't have it, then you can use Power Query if I think mistaken, and DAX will come the last. But then these are the 3 recommended ones. Yeah. Let's see who is leading. Okay, we have Fruity, Ming, and Broom. Oh. Wow, Fruity is so fast. Okay, let's continue. Second question. Do I have to click anything? Oh, okay. Sorry. Which of the following is a dimension table? Okay, so first, sales transaction table, merchant table, reservation record table, dental appointment table.
Oh,
Which is the one?
不用买东西。你有会麻烦哦，等我可以出去买。
Someone is talking. I got mute you. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Okay, so the answer is actually merchant table. So remember, dimension table is all about talking about entity, it's describing some attribute about something, an object. But then fact table is about it's all about like the transaction based, record based. So the tips that I can give here when I'm doing what is dimension, what is fact, I'm not even sure whether they will be asking or not, right? But in designing star schema, you need to identify dimension table and fact table. So merchant table is something that you are describing a merchant, like an attribute. So it is a dimension table. The rest, they are not. They are transaction table where you record things down. It's a transaction based, sales based. So it's actually a fact table. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, okay.
Sorry, Brian, your voice is like a bit breaking for me. I don't know how about
really?
others. Yeah.
Can others hear me now?
Now
Is
it's
it better
better.
now?
Yeah.
Oh,
it is
okay,
the
sorry. Okay, sorry.
It's
So do I
a
need
bit
to
like
repeat
that.
it? Yeah, I need to hold it here like that. Can you? So do I need to repeat myself? I think it's okay lah. Can proceed, right? Okay,
you can.
we'll proceed. Yeah, let's move on to the next one. Let's see who is winning. Oh, Casper is winning. KY and Wolf. Okay, looks like the chart has moved a bit. It's okay. We have few more questions to go. I think, yeah, 2, 3 more. Okay. What's the next one? I also don't remember it. Oh, joining region table to country table with a region ID. What relationship is this? One to many, one to one, or many to many? Joining a region table. So do you remember, is it like many region to many country or one region to one country? Okay, correct. So the answer is one to many because one region, multiple region many region can be related to one country. So it's a many to one. It's a many to one, but in a way also it's one to many, right? Depending on which directions you go. Okay, one to one is like you are joining a product listing to okay, I can't structure my mind right now.
Fiona.
If anyone has anything,
Fiona,
you can
Ming,
proceed to question.
Ming, you want to say something?
Yeah, Ming, you want to have the example? I'm not thinking straight right now.
I think many to one should be the appropriate one because I think the direction, like if you say one region to many country,
Yeah.
then it might be a bit confusing,
Yeah,
in my
yeah.
opinion.
Correct. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, so it's actually many to one. Yeah, but then it depends on which direction you go. Yeah, but in this relationship is either many to one to many lah. Right? Okay. Okay, I think the other two, if we need as example, we can discuss it later. Let's go to the next one. Okay, let's see who moved up the ladder now. Oh, Casper is catching up. Casper is still at the top. Okay, let's see. Let's see if Broom can really broom the way on to the first one or not. Let's go. Okay, I need to count down. Do I need to count down? Okay, the fourth question. How can you identify report performance bottleneck? Okay, first is use estimate execution time feature in Power BI. Second is use performance analyzer. Third one is publish the dashboard and get feedback from users. So which one is it? Correct. The answer is use performance analyzer. Use estimate execution time feature is just something that I made up. I don't think there's such feature there. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, let's see. I'm curious to see if Broom made it up. Oh, looks like it. Oh, it's from. Okay, Broom, you are one point away from Wolf. I like the name a lot, guys. Okay, the last one. This is the last question. Which of the way is not the way to optimize your report? reduce the number of columns imported, enable auto date time option, use variables in DAX, reduce cardinality levels. Which one is not the way? Yeah, not the way. Oh, sorry, I forgot to pick the right answer. The answer is enable auto date time option is not the way. You should disable it if you want to optimize, but provided you have already have that date time thing set up in your report, in your data, so you can disable it to optimize your report. The rest of the three, sorry, reduce the number of columns imported, use variable index, reduce cardinality levels are some of the ways that are proposed to optimize your report, meaning to improve the performance. Okay. Okay, sorry for the technical issue.
So if you don't answer, do you get more points?
Yeah, I think so. I'm so sorry, bro. If you are fighting for it, you may have won this round, but I did not pick the answer for this one. So Wolf won the session. But everyone is close. I think the top 4 is very, very close, like Wolf, Bloom, KY, Casper. And the rest, if you have any confusion, maybe later on you can ask Is, or we can talk about it when we are discussing it. Yeah. So that will be all. I won't be able to cover everything, so I just picked some of the things I think is important. I hope guys learn something or get your mind refreshed before Is start the sharing. So any questions for now? I hope you guys don't have any. So if no, then we can move on to Is. Shall we get Is on here?
Yes.
Hi,
Okay.
Is. Are you ready?
Yeah,
I'll pass it to you then.
let me share my screen.
Thanks, Is. Here we go.
This one is going to be very boring, I think, because I did slide quite fast. So basically, when I was looking through the course, seems like there's 3 parts for the model data in Power BI. First part is like designing the data model. Second part was more like to understand the DAX and use it. Third one was to optimize the data model performance. Like just now, the last question, what are the ways to optimize the performance? That was related to the third section. So overall, the first part is just an introduction of whatever they're trying to ask us to use. So first thing is what is data model? Based on my understanding, this is an example of data model where you try to build a relationship between multiple tables in Power BI. So these relationships are basically defined using primary keys and foreign keys. Those are the keys that join the multiple tables together. And I don't know whether you can see my pointer or not. Can you guys see my pointer?
Yes,
Yes,
Is.
yeah.
You guys can?
Can see your mouse, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So basically this one is the one that defines the relationship, whether it's one-to-one or many-to-many or many-to-one. So yep, that is the basic idea for data model. And then in terms of star schema, so star schema is just one way of simplifying data. There are other ways also to simplify data. And as just now in the quiz, they mentioned fact table is the main data, while other tables like the records and everything, others which related to the fact table are the dimension data. So for example, customer data will be the fact data, their age, their location, their address will be the dimension for this fact data. It's an example. Any question here? It's very basic. No questions, yeah?
Yeah, no, if they have any, I'll ping you.
Okay, okay.
You know, yeah.
Okay, then they also went through how to create a data model in Power BI. So basically, the first step was just to get the data table, get the table into the data model, import them, and then you can add additional columns using this format, this formula here. So this one is just to format the date based on what you want. Like for example, to get the day of the week, can use this format dates. And then for date table, you can mark this as date because the reason for this is to remove null values and also to get a continuous date value over a period, or else if there's a gap, there's a null value, it will show up as a incorrect data, which is quite hard to visualize later then. So it's better to mark date table as date table. That's the second one. And third one is to build a relationship with other data table, other tables. So this one is to improve the information you get from the data. Ideally, when you're doing this, they suggest columns. They do suggest columns, which is common between these two. But if there is difference in terms of the name of the column, it's best for you to know about the table and what are the primary keys joining these tables. Else, if both the column names are same in both the table to join, then shouldn't be an issue here. That's to build a relationship. That's the three steps actually to get a data table in. In terms of hierarchy is just a way to drill down a category into subcategory. For example, if you have a bikes as the main category, what are some other components inside bikes? We have road bikes, mountain bikes, all these things. It's just a breakdown of the bikes. That's a hierarchy. We look at data table similar to you're doing a group by, and then you have level 1, level 2, level 3 information, right? So those are similar to hierarchy concept. And hierarchy is a bit hard to understand because you need to look at the details in detail. So instead of using hierarchy, we can just do the flattening of data to look at the information in more detailed level. So this one, you can get a one-to-one relationship for each and every level. For example, for here, the employee ID is Quincy Howard. He is the lead for this group. So if you look at the hierarchy level, this is probably a category 3. Look at the hierarchy level, he is the top, and followed by him is Mallory Hang, Danonan, and Dano1. So this is how the category goes. So without a flattening, you wouldn't be able to see what is the relationship like between Quincy and Kelly Savage. But if you do a flattening, you can see that she is actually at the 6th level of the hierarchy. But that's basically just a reason for hierarchy. And they also show a function actually how to get the part level for this table. If we have hierarchy data, we want to flatten it. So it's all in the tutorial itself. So just getting the information right here. And data granularity means that we want to see more information about the table. So for example, with just one table, we have age and then the age group and the age. But if we want to understand more about the data, we want to get more information, we might be able to link with other tables to get any additional attributes like a region. Can link to region table to get the region for this group, or can link again with income table to get the income for this group. So it's just adding more tables would usually increase the data granularity for the data in Power BI. As that. And then cardinality is like everyone mostly understand. It just shows the relationship between tables. So you have one-to-one, many-to-one, and many-to-one and many. Sorry. Yeah, this two is actually many. This is many-to-many, many-to-one. Yeah. Many-to-one? No, this is one-to-one. This is many-to-one. So the asterisk here actually shows many-to-many. This one is actually many. This one is one. So I think my label is wrong here. One-to-one, many-to-many, and many-to-one. So the asterisk is just a many and one is one. That's that. So basically the first few information is just for you to understand star schema and understand relationship between tables. You can go through this again to understand. I go to second part. Or am I too fast?
No, all good for now. Thanks, Ace.
Okay, thanks. Second part will be just to introduce about DAX. DAX is actually I don't have definition here. Then, data analysis query or something, I don't remember. I'll get back to the meaning later. So to understand the syntax for DAX, basically it's just like a formula with a function in it. So this is an example of DAX. So if you look at here, total sales is actually the measure for the whatever column you're trying to create. And the equal sign is just to show the beginning of the formula we have here. Then sum is a function, like most of functions. Functions receive an argument. Sales amount is the argument. In terms of the breakdown of argument, sales is the table name. Sales amount is the column name. So this is very basic function. We will also improve this by adding multiplication, division, and something like that to improve this data that we can get from here. This is just a breakdown of text.
Sorry, I think Kenyang has a question.
Yep. Okay.
Does relationship go both ways? Sometimes saw relationship line with errors for both directions.
Oh, means one second, how do I go back? This is the one, right? She's asking about.
Yeah, are you asking about this? Like it's going both ways, you mean?
I think both ways will happen for many to many, where you can have one value here linking to multiple tables here and multiple values here linking to multiple tables here. So that is both ways. But I think one to many and one to one are just a one-way direction. Sorry, many to one is a one-way direction. Other two is both ways. But maybe I don't understand the question correctly. But based on my understanding,
Kenyang, does that answer your questions, or do you want
both
to
ways will.
So there's four figure on the slide now. The right two is both way directions, right? So it means that many to one and many, it means that many to one, the relationship goes both ways.
Many to one is usually a one-way direction, because if you flip the table, then the relationship will no longer be valid. But one to one and many to many should be valid, because even though you flip the table, the relationship will still be many to many and one to one.
Okay, so I think the caption is not correct for the figure.
Just now I flagged
Okay.
that. Yeah. This is actually asterisk here means many, so many to many, one to one, and many to one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I have to change this. Thanks. Okay, this one can be skipped. Right here, this function, go through this really. And then calculated columns, this is just one way of using DAX. You can use DAX to do calculated columns. One thing about calculated columns is increases the file size. So if you want to reduce the file size, minimize your file size, you might try a different way to do additional columns. Instead of manually typing your DAX formula here using calculated columns, Power BI also have a predefined template. You can just use a new quick measures, and they have some predefined templates to just use on your current data, like average, something like that. This is also DAX, is nothing outside of DAX. So if you want to say an alternative of DAX, you can try to use custom columns. This one is using Power Query and language. It's not DAX expression. When to use this? Mostly you have to use this when you want to have a more compact and optimal way of creating columns, or when the model is really huge, because the computation will be long, or you require to add multiple calculated computed columns. This one also will cause your Power BI file to be larger. So instead of that, you can use an alternative Power Query. Also need to create a new column as part of your query. This one is So it's not sure, so I copy paste. So the last point, I'm not sure yet. I'll get back to this. But basically, if your DAX formula will cause your size to, your computation to be high, or your file size to be large, might as well fall back to some other ways to create the custom column, either by using this custom column Power Query M, or while you're importing the data itself, you can do it in SQL query. That's much recommended because less computation from Power BI side. That's alternative. So in terms of how the DAX is computed, it depends solely on the context. So here on the first image, if there is no selection in terms of which year to use, it shows all the value here. But if we select 2015, that's a computation for just the 2015 value, and numbers here, the DAX values shows just for 2015. So a way to override this default thing is by using calculate. So formula is here, calculate. So this one will just show you the actual values of the 2015 instead of showing it as part of the existing image. There will be a more cleaner way in case you want to do a default value for a number. You don't want to mess up the original visuals. So that is to play with the default value of DAX initialization. Another example of DAX is using the use relationship function. The use case of this use relationship is to get a chart to compare different dates groups. For example, you have two different data, but you want the data value to the date value to be same range 2015. I think the image is not so good. The date range to be same 2014, 2014, 2015, 2015. So you want to have something similar in terms of comparison, then you can use the use relationship function in DAX. Another example is to use semi-additive measures. This one is just a way for you to do a row-wise calculation. So, for example, calculate some warehouse inventory and last date. This one will just look at the whole warehouse inventory column and get the last date for this data. So this one is just, for example, you don't have to manually type in the last date based on the manual calculation. You can just use this to create a static column which shows the last date for the whole data itself. Also, it's useful for inventory inventory calculation to do as a inventory calculations. Another example is time intelligence, also some function in DAX. Some examples similar to what we have here to create a static date for a given static data for a given date. This one is an example of aggregation, and this one will be an example of previous month's calculations. So 39 is from last month, 55 is from last month, something like that. The function is here. So this is all just basically how to use DAX formula and syntax. That's done. Last part is just to optimize the model. So why we actually need this? I think like everyone knows most of the dashboard, if not optimized, people will comment with this kind of image. It's not really a good user experience. So Power BI have some default way to measure performance. One is using performance analyzer. It's a quick way to know where is the actual issues. They got mentioned several ways to make sure this Power Performance Analyzer is working correctly. But based on my understanding of reading it, the best step would be probably to create a blank page in your Power BI. And then with the page selected, save it, close it, reopen it, and then you can do the Power BI analyzing. In this one will also clear the hash as well as do some other, I think memory clearance or something. Two things which you have to do to get a proper performance analyzer result. And here they are sorting by total time, just to make sure that those that take longest time to load or to compute will show up first, because that's most often the reason why dashboard loads slow. Another thing we can see here, an example is a lot of visuals here, redundant visuals, and this one will probably take a lot of time if the raw data is 1 million row to 100,000 rows, something like that. So one way is just to simplify these visuals, probably create a bar chart or something like that, which can easily summarize these numbers into a more easily understandable and less pictorial way. Most common thing is if it's more than 100 fields, then it's going to load slow. Otherwise, it's going to be okay, I guess. I haven't tried with multiple visuals. Step 3 is to fix slow DAX query. So when you do a query analyzer, you can see that some queries load quite some time. So general rule of thumb is 120 milliseconds already too long. I need to change it to use a different method. Like for example, instead of using filter, can you skip filters? The way it computes is different, so the time taken is also different. So a rough understanding of how keep filters changes the computation. It does not remove the existing columns, so the time it takes to process will be slightly faster. Not fast, slightly. It's quite significant in terms of computation. And then step 4 is use variable for performance. So in this first one, the parallel period is evaluated twice, once here, another one here. But if you use a variable to define a parallel period, so here, sales prior to here, then you can just reuse this whole variable here in the second query without having to compute multiple times. So this one will save one time of calculation. Here, if each calculation takes 10 seconds, here it will take 20 seconds, but here you probably just take 10 and half seconds, something like that, because this time is reduced by half. This one using variable. You can also use variable for debugging. You can print up the values and see how long it takes for it to print. So that can also be used an estimate for time calculation. The return is actually those that's actually printed in the console. So likewise, you see here, the return is also printed in the console just for debugging purpose. Another thing is to reduce cardinality. We can look at column cardinality using these visuals. If general rule of thumb is a lot of unique values, means it's a high cardinality, and a lot of repeated values is low cardinality. So best for us to go to something which is low cardinality. Another way is to opt for direct query instead of DAX, because computation faster, but there is also some limitation for direct queries here, which I didn't put it here. And finally, instead of using raw data, might as well summarize the data using group by, or summarize it even before importing the data and then visualizing it. Because in this way, the computation wouldn't take too long because you don't have to go through the full 100,000, 200,000 rows of data. Yep, that's all. Finish. Any questions? Or everyone slept already?
I think it's a lot to digest. I think it's a lot to digest, yeah.
Yeah. I just create a slide so that I can, during exam time, can do revision quick and fast.
Yeah,
In terms of
those slides are nice. They are very good for a refreshment. But how do you guys find the module? Like, do you guys find it hard, or it's actually okay to follow?
Just wondering how useful is DAX outside Power BI?
it's used in Excel also, I think. It's most of the Microsoft's analytics.
Really? That?
Yeah. I was reading through.
Yeah.
There's also application outside of Power BI.
Oh, really?
They really dive through.
That's really something that learn something new. Oh.
It's used in Power Pivot in Excel.
Power Pivot in Excel, okay.
but I've never used it personally. I was just looking at other use and that's what I found it.
Understood. But Power Query and DAX are that's what I know. Yeah, Power Query and DAX are different, because I tried applying DAX in Power Query before, and apparently it doesn't work. What about the rest? How do you guys find the module, the learning path particularly? Maybe you can type in the chat, right? If it's challenging for you, then you can put 1. If it's okay, just easy peasy or can catch up, right? Then you can just put 2.
I think Lily is unmuted, so maybe she can share something.
Yeah, Lily, what do you think?
Me. I think it's, I mean, I didn't realize I was unmuted. Sorry. I think my mom also came inside the room just now. So sorry if you guys heard her. Yeah, this is a tough module. It feels like, I think, I don't know whether I said this, I might be repeating myself, but it feels like Excel all over again. Like you're starting day 1 in Excel, your boss is saying like, okay, basically work with this set of data and you have no knowledge of like formulas. And then you start learning like different formulas. And then you're like, oh, I have to remember all these formulas now. And it takes time and practice for it becomes instinctive. So like, I think when XLOOKUP came out, I was like, what on earth is this? But actually, if you know like conceptually like how the formulas work, like the logic is built in your brain already, then you know, like, because it comes up with the prompts, right? So the question is then to know what is the scope of the different functions within the application or the program. Like I feel like this is the same experience for DAX. Like it's very hard to sit down. I was sharing this morning. There's actually quite good resources on LinkedIn Learning, specifically on model data, which personally I find is right now the most challenging because I don't have any application at work when it comes to using Power BI. So I'm like sitting through, like trying to power through this 3-hour course, and I feel like vomiting blood. It's like, because there's just so much, and then you're kind of learning things. Like they're just giving you like, okay, this is a function, this is a function, this is a function, and like how never, and I'm trying to like remember and type down like and index out all the different potential functions, which I think to myself everything's going to be useful, but the reality is like I think when push comes to shove, when you get to the actual use of the application, that's when you really appreciate it. But now I'm in a moment where I'm just like, oh, there's so much things to do. There's so much things to learn within DAX. And it's a great question, like how is DAX applicable outside of the Power BI environment? Yeah, no, it's a good question. But I like to think that once you sort of know, it's like driving, then that you know, like, oh, tentatively, this is how you reverse, then you can just reverse at many angles kind of thing, or like you drive forward and things like that. So yeah, that's my food for thought. This model. I mean, hats off to East. When I saw the slides this morning when I was on bed, I was like, oh, this is such a good summary and like a very good base to work on.
Yeah.
If you're doing any notes, just to remember how to use the different.
And I think East finished it like on Thursday, right? She sent me the copy. Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, I'm still at my final module to finish the learning path. But she finished pretty early, yeah. I think Ming has a question. What's the difference between DAX and Power Query? Anyone wants to take this up? If not, then I can try. So, okay, so let me try. So Power Query is the one that you do when you're importing the data, and then at the data. So they are model data. They are model data and your report, right? Report is where you do that visualization, and data is where you see the data. So at that point, you can actually clean your data, transform your data, right? So if you go to advanced setting in the Power Query, which they actually touched a bit, but they did not really go into it. There's this thing called M language. So that's the Power Query bits of it, where you really use the syntax to clean the data and transform the data, right? But DAX is more on when you are going to a visualization and then you start calculating or creating measure, then you are using DAX. So in a way, how people usually explain it is DAX is like a formula that you use in Excel, right? You use it to manipulate the data. Power Query is more like usually you use it to just clean the data and transform the data. You change the column, you change the name, etc. Yeah, but both of them are using different language. So you can't use DAX in Power Query, and you can't use Power Query stuff in DAX. Yeah, I find DAX is relatively very useful because they have those built-in one like year-on-year growth kind of thing, or like the sales over year, that kind of formula for you. You just plug and then use it, but we need to understand the syntax. But overall,
Is
I
it a bit
also,
like
sorry.
so if you have like set codes of DAX, is it a bit like using macros just to make your life easier?
I actually never really used macro. Sorry. So sorry. But yeah, it's like a built-in function that you can use it, like the one that is show on the year-on-year kind of thing, or like the year-to-date kind of thing. So it's also part of the lab that we have used it quite frequently, but they always ask us to go to snippets and then copy the code and then paste it in, but I usually code it up myself just so that I can get myself familiarized with the syntax and the function. So yeah, but the module is relatively very long and very like a lot of things to absorb, especially like I thought the second module is like finished already, right? The lab is gone and whatever, right? I learned about DAX and all, and then suddenly they have like this last module saying optimizing your performance. I'm like, oh my god. So a lot of things to absorb, but then can we hear about like the rest? Like how do you find the learning path, and then what's the most interesting thing that you learned from the learning path? Yeah, things that you didn't know that it actually worked that way. Right? Anyone wants to volunteer to share some of the experience?
Can I share a bit? So first of all, well done, Is. I think that was a really good presentation, and it's very good for me to refresh what I learned because it was quite a while ago. So I'm a bit worried for my exam. So I think the previous week, we sort of learned how to get the data into Power BI, right? We learned about get data, import from either the SQL data source, or you can also import from like Excel file or CSV. Then to this past week, and what is presented today is about modeling of the data. So modeling of the data is important so that you have the data easily accessible for you to create visuals on your Power BI later. So that's why we learn about relationship, right? One to many, many to one, or bi-directional relationship. How do we resolve that? And lastly, we also learn about optimization, right? Why all these are important is because we want to get the data into this state that when we use the data in our visual, it is ready to go, right? You don't need to calculate so much when you show, let's say, a sum or an average, or like some of the bar chart, or even showing the things on a map or something like that, right? So this week is very important to get your data in a good state for you to move on to the next week, which we will do the visualization. So yes, naturally it will be quite heavy, and we are covering a lot of things here, and you feel like you have to memorize, right, all those things. But of course, the more you use, then the more it will make sense. For example, it's hard to force yourself to learn all the year-to-date, sum or average, but when you are using it to build your report, to present your data to an audience, then naturally you're thinking, oh, yeah, I want to summarize, or I want to average over the things. Then you will go and find the formulas. I think, so don't stress too much. Of course, some of these may be covered in the exam, but this will come naturally as you build your visuals in the future, right? That's what I think. So Keen to hear also what other people think about this past week that you studied, what you want to share, your learnings and all that.
Yeah, anyone?
And maybe you can share like where you find it easy to learn or what's difficult and you know what kind of things are difficult for you. Because I think for me also, just lastly, because I come from a programming background, so some of the things like programming, like variables, like formulas are easier for me to absorb, but I'm not from the data background. Whereas somebody from a database or data background, relationship for them is very natural. You know, this one joined to that and all that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think different people with different background may find different things easier or harder.
Yeah, I agree. But I still got confused in Power BI on the cross
Brianna,
filter.
you're a bit soft.
Sorry, yeah, on the cross filter or the how they disable the many-to-many relationship kind of thing. That one is also a bit confused for me. Yeah, even though I've been working on like those relationships for quite a while, but those are something that I really can't figure out. As of now, maybe when I meet the situation, I deal with it now. Because they keep saying that many-to-many is something that we'll deal with it later. Okay, I'll be waiting for you.
Yeah, that's true. That's more complex thing to understand. Yeah.
What about the rest? Anyone wants to share? Like Angela, Mabel, Wilson, Kevin, Yuki?
Does anyone here use Tableau or other visualization tools? Do you feel any similarities? Like I noticed when the group by and all that, it seems to repeat. Doesn't matter what software you use, you have to learn those kind of skills.
Yeah, I think
Can I share a bit?
Hello. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I'm like definitely, so I come from a programming background and I'm a programming lecturer. So I teach databases, I teach programming. But I'm not a Microsoft product person. So I actually started this week's last week's learning path yesterday night because of work. So and then I managed to cram all three into what few hours. So that is partly is because of the background that because our background is computer science. So we do databases, we do programming, we do this kind of functions kind of stuff. So it comes kind of naturally. All right. So it's kind of easy to really go past that. But I find it not that difficult, but perhaps the most difficult thing would be there are a lot of things to the Power BI desktop, as in like there are a lot of features. I didn't realize, oh, when you right click, it's going to bring up this feature. When you double click on it, then there's something new that pops up. But otherwise, like the modeling feature of that program, they are kind of similar, as in like if you have used Microsoft Access, if you have used SQL Server, you have more or less the same thing there. All right. And the content that has been covered in a learning path, some of them are very basic computer science theories. So that again helps in us cramming all this very quickly. But I use a little bit of Tableau because I'm actually because I teach Tableau as well. In one of my courses. So Tableau and this one it's actually kind of similar. Just that I noticed that Power BI is geared more towards Microsoft products. So they are fantastic with integrating all your, if you are trying to streamline all your data sources from a Microsoft product, SharePoint, OneDrive, they are fantastic because naturally they are the same product. So coming together, they work so well. Tableau is slightly different. The data sources, they are still supported, but there's still a bit more work there, but their visualizations are fantastic. But then again, we have similar concepts across these two different products, right? Things like measures, calculated columns, but more or less the same thing. Like probably you call it A here and you call it B there. It's more or less the same thing. Again, that helps. All right. So it's not my intention to start it last minute, but it's just really work. And I thought I should, guys did a fantastic job with the presentation. I thought, I need to catch up because otherwise I don't know what you guys are going to talk about. Okay, so that is that. So for now, I'm still on the survival mode.
We all are. I finished it way earlier because I know that I needed to do the Menti. So I need time to create a question. So I need time to finish the module before that. That's how I keep myself, I make sure myself finish it. Otherwise, I think I'll be like, just crunch everything in one day. So maybe you can consider taking out next week's session to be a Menti one or the do it before that. But thanks, Wisdom, for sharing your experience with me. Any other people? Maybe you can get someone that is like completely new to Power BI or like even data, just curious wanted to know how are you doing? Are you like struggling? Or actually the content is good enough for you to pick up? Right? Any new one here? Pauline, are you new to Power BI or?
Yeah, I'm saying everything is totally new for me.
How do you find the thing?
I guess like legal background where our thoughts are we know.
I'm sorry, Pauline, I can't really hear you. Yeah, so sorry.
It's better.
Yeah, can you try speaking?
No, I can't hear.
I think it's okay. You can try.